Over the last 15 years or so, we have witnessed the demise of Ubisoft in real time. It's pretty much gotten sadder and sadder year on year. It's gotten worse and worse. And you look at basically every single one of their IPs, and they're either just all dead or interest is totally evaporated. In fact, the IPs that are looked on most fondly are the ones that they haven't touched in a while, because they haven't had a chance to ruin them and stain them in any real way. I mean, you look at Assassin's Creed, you go back originally, there was some innovation there, the whole parkour, the open world aspect. Back in 2009, that was seen as quite innovative. People were very excited as to where that could go. It was the same for Far Cry. You had all these things going on. Far Cry 2, for instance. You have this dystopian jungle. You're playing missions your own way. You think, what's Far Cry 3, Far Cry 4 going to bring? Oh, it's just going to become a reskin of Assassin's Creed. And the Assassin's Creed series is going to become a reskin of itself, basically. It's just a conveyor belt of games with zero creativity to them, very, very generic, designed in a boardroom with spreadsheets of metrics, of gamers simply chasing dopamine hits, collecting things around the map. Stories, they cannot be interesting because then they might confuse people, so take anything interesting out of the story. It must be lowest common denominator stuff. We must appeal to all the people who are going to accept that you will own nothing and be happy, you will own none of your games. That is the Ubisoft motto. I've just thrown out a couple of the IPs. I mean, they pretty much ruined all of them. You think of Splinter Cell, for instance. That series got put on ice despite it once doing a lot of great things. They're talking about a remake, and for some series out there, some IPs out there, not really Ubisoft but others, you'd get excited about the prospect of them bringing something like that back, given Splinter Cell is quite beloved. When it's Ubisoft, people are just concerned. They know they're going to fuck this up. They're thinking, Sam Fisher, are we going to get Sam Fisher, or is it going to be Samantha Fisher? We know where all that's going to go. You think of Beyond Good and Evil. That was back in the times when Ubisoft did Rayman and all these creative games. Beyond Good and Evil was a big one, and people have talked about the sequel forever. We're going to get the Epstein files, the real Epstein files, before we ever see Beyond Good and Evil 2. Apparently it hasn't been cancelled. Is that just a PR thing or something? That's never coming. I think even the person who was meant to be creating us, maybe created the original, was meant to do the sequel or something. Didn't he die or something? He's not even there anymore. So that's not happening. Nothing good is happening with Ubisoft. It's pretty much all over. There was all the stuff with Tencent. It all seems quite sad. They've hit absolutely rock bottom. And this is absolutely all their own fault, because they could see this coming. They could see interest waning in Far Cry, other series, where people were just getting sick of them, because you just do the exact same thing over and over again. You don't listen to your fans. You look at maybe the sales numbers, you look at Valhalla and think, that sold really well, so that guarantees our next one's going to be big. Doesn't matter that that came out during the pandemic when game sales were higher. Doesn't matter that most people have a negative perception of Ubisoft, and that's starting to filter into even just those normie gamers who pick up an Assassin's Creed or something because it gets marketed to them. They're not looking at online discourse and so on. But it's even filtering through to those people, just generally on social media. People have a very negative perception of Ubisoft, and people expect something better in the era of where the big games, not necessarily the ones with the most expensive marketing campaigns, they are the Baldur's Gate 3s, they are the Expedition 33s, where it is something a bit more creative that gets people talking and word of mouth spreads. Those are now the big ones. Ubisoft ignored all of that, the direction of the industry, and they just put out another safe Assassin's Creed, the same old slop, even though it was feudal Japan. That was meant to be the safe bet for Assassin's Creed. Guaranteed moneymaker. They'd bring everyone back. They just have that sort of skin. It's the exact same game as always, but the feudal Japan skin, that'll be a guaranteed hit. Didn't happen. Star Wars Outlaws as well. So there's all this excitement that we're getting a new IP from Ubisoft. What could this be? All of the possibilities. What are they going to do in this universe? Surprise, surprise, it's just yet again another reskin of the exact same Ubisoft formula. I think that one has a slightly different developer. It's not just the Assassin's Creed team doing their take on things. It is a new team somewhat within Ubisoft who could have done something different, but no, they have to follow the exact same template, no risks, even though it is Star Wars, new IP, could have been a new direction. They did what they did with the Avatar game, where it is just, again, more Far Cry, more Assassin's Creed, nothing different here. But in their minds, it should have been a big success, because they struck gold 15 years ago with Assassin's Creed 2, that sold copies, formula seemed to work well, so surely that would just work forever. That's been their mindset for the longest time. Now that it isn't working, now that Star Wars Outlaws flopped, so many of their games underperforming, they've been sort of hush-hush with the Assassin's Creed Shadow sales numbers, which means it's a flop. They would be bragging about it if it was a genuine success. There's some copers out there who go, oh, sold millions of copies, even though I've got no context to what that means when it comes to the budget and the marketing and everything. Millions of copies, it's definitely a success. Shut up, grifters, that's the mindset some have, but it was a failure. And all of their games recently have been failures. Far Cry 6 underperformed. Pretty much every single one of them. It's why they had all of the stuff with Tencent, where they're starting again and they're having to shift things around because they're in massive trouble. You would think after all of that there might be some self-awareness where we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to make a change. The Ubisoft formula isn't working anymore. People are totally sick of it. They want something new. They're crying out for something new. Even the open world games that come out, like the Elden Rings and so on, where people will praise them is, what did you do different to Ubisoft? How did you tackle open worlds and just do something unique that isn't just the same old copy and pasted Ubisoft thing? Sony did a little bit of that with the Horizon and series and other ones as well, where people were just kind of a little bit too Ubisoft. Even Breath of the Wild, if there's ever any criticism, it's for Ubisoft Towers and things. People do not want Ubisoft. They want anything different. That's what they're looking for. And they will praise your game if you do it differently than Ubisoft. So that should tell them it's time for change. It's time to do something else that doesn't put people to sleep. Ubisoft don't see it that way. In fact, all their failures recently, their attitude is, it's not our fault. How could it possibly be our fault? We're talented. We're doing the thing. It worked a decade ago, so it should work now. It must be other people's fault. It must be everyone except us. It's a bit of a pattern recently. I think BioWare did the same thing with Dragon Age the Veilguard. It's not our fault. It's not the game. It's not the team who actually made it. It's other things. It's the toxic fans. It's this, it's that. Ubisoft are doing the same thing as well, and they're doing it currently with Star Wars Outlaws, which flopped everywhere. It flopped on console, it flopped on PC. In fact, Star Wars Outlaws was sort of the Kickstarter for where they stopped putting their games at launch only on Ubisoft Connect or Uplay or whatever it's called now. It's a useless launcher. It shouldn't exist. It provides zero value whatsoever. It sucks. I've had a bunch of problems with it. But they started removing games from launch only being on Ubisoft Connect. They now launch on Steam as well. And that kickstarted. In fact, they clearly had plans to make it exclusive to their own launcher for quite a while, maybe a year or two like they've done with other games. But they very hastily released this game on Steam, which is just a big sign that it was a massive flop. I think when all was said and done, it sold like 1 million copies. Word of mouth isn't very positive, so it's not going to have legs or anything. It's not like a hidden gem that people will discover later. No, it's just a crap game. It's generic. No one wanted it, and people, I think, were actually quite optimistic about it. I think despite the character looking kind of ridiculous and a lot of it just looking pretty lame, people were optimistic. They thought, you know what? Open world Star Wars game, this is what I've been looking for. It's a shame it's Ubisoft, who, again, are devoid of all creativity, and they're not going to do anything interesting, but maybe I will get my Star Wars escapism. I can step into the shoes, the Star Wars universe. This could be it. Even if it's a 6, 7 out of 10, maybe it'll do the job. It didn't even seem to do that for people. There was just disappointment across the board, and it was a disaster, basically. And Ubisoft's excuse isn't that the game was unfinished. That was a big thing. It just seemed to come out half-baked. It wasn't that they didn't try and do anything interesting with the Star Wars universe. They didn't try and do their take. It's just an Assassin's Creed reskin. Wasn't that, was none of those things. In fact, what it was, using the words of the CEO of Ubisoft, is the brand that it belonged to, so the Star Wars brand, was in a bit of choppy waters. And that's why the game failed. So it wasn't Ubisoft's fault, it was Disney. They've already driven Star Wars into the ground. Every piece of media that releases for Star Wars sucks. And unfortunately, that was all put onto Ubisoft, and that was Ubisoft's burden to bear, and that's why the game flopped. So there was nothing that they could possibly do about it. Doesn't matter that they're contributing to the problem, that they themselves, like so many other companies, have released a crap piece of Star Wars media that taints the brand, and it went from, even though for years and years, given the prequels, at least half of the mainstream Star Wars media was crap. You have the original trilogy that's obviously beloved, then you have the prequels, a mixed bag. Now there's more bad and good, but Ubisoft contributed that directly by making a half-baked game where they were just trying to write off an IP, essentially. They did it for Avatar as well. They got the rights or whatever to release an Avatar game. I don't care about the property that much, but I was kind of interested to see, are they going to do something different? Or is it just going to be Far Cry again? It was. It's literally just a reskinned Far Cry. That's kind of half-assed because they were just trying to rush it out. It sounds like they did with Star Wars Outlaws, where it was absolutely rushed, zero quality control, just get it out there. Maybe part of that is because they have to pay money back to Disney, so they don't want to spend as much time on it, and they don't care as much. It's not their IP. Get it out, maximize as much money as possible. We'll see what we do from there, if we make another Star Wars game or not. Seems to just be their mindset. They didn't take it too seriously. They thought it was just a license to print money whenever they signed that contract. We can make a Star Wars game, our winning formula. We don't even need to think about it. Just get this out there. We're going to make money. Doesn't happen. It flops abysmally. No looking inward, no thinking, hey, if we had have made a decent Star Wars game, if we had have done something like the team behind Star Wars Jedi, Respawn, Survivor as well, which I wish they'd fix that PC port and then maybe I'd play it, but didn't put any effort like those guys did. And that game wasn't even all that innovative. It was just like a solid adventure. It was just decent. They put some effort into it. Didn't try and reinvent the whole wheel, but just some effort into that game. It did pretty well. Ubisoft couldn't do that, couldn't even do the bare minimum, and it flops. But it's not their fault, apparently. It's because Star Wars is in a bit of choppy waters. Poor us. That's their mindset after all this. After every IP, basically, they've had has completely flopped, done abysmally. All their fault over the years. We've seen that decline year on year. These same idiots they have in charge. It's a family company, family business, and they don't seem to know what they're doing. They haven't for a long time. It doesn't really sound like there is any plan from here. It's not like they've gone back to the drawing board. I thought I heard stuff about emergency meetings, and they were taking 100 days to nail out the problems and what they're going to do to fix the whole Ubisoft situation. They talked about refocusing on a handful of really big IPs, but it doesn't really matter anyway, does it? Because their IPs have all been the same for years anyway. They all bleed into each other with the exact same gameplay formula and the exact same style. The visuals might look different. They all play exactly the same. Despite all these emergency meetings, it sounds like they have no awareness. They can't see where they might have been going wrong whatsoever. And in fact, this continues on where he says, and the game had a few items that still needed to be polished. And they were polished and debugged in the early weeks, but it did affect sales volumes. Again, it's like the problem is right there, and you're not seeing it, or you do not care to see it, which is that the game released and it was unfinished. People could see that. No, I do not want to spend $80 on an unfinished, lazy game. I'm not going to bother. I don't care if you supposedly fix it in a few weeks, and we promise it's fixed. Please buy it now. No. Everyone's going to wait for a sale, which is what they're going to do, because we're sick of these unfinished games, and it suggests that the entire game, you've put no effort into it. You didn't with this one. Again, it could have been a new IP, your take on the Star Wars universe. You didn't care. It was just a lazy reskin, like most of your games these days. We did heavily improve the game by troubleshooting and debugging, And when it will be released on upcoming consoles such as the Switch 2, it will be the new version of the game. Why don't you just get it right the first time? A Star Wars game that is good is going to sell if there's just some basic quality control. You care about it somewhat. We've seen that before, even with the brand tarnished. And this is going back 25 years. Even before the prequels came out, or right around the time that they came out, and there was some criticism, Star Wars wasn't in the greatest place. If a game came out and it was good, people were absolutely on board with it. They were going to love it. In fact, sometimes it's better, because if you can't get a good experience from the movies or the generic Star Wars TV shows, if you can get the best Star Wars experience from a game, people will flock to it, because they do love that universe and what is possible if you get it spot on. And they will give it a chance. People were willing to give it a chance. You guys fucked it up. And there's examples. You go back to KOTOR. You go to the Dark Forces series. Dark Forces 2 especially, Outcast, Academy. These are beloved games, and people want more of that. They don't want Outlaws. Just the same old shit over and over again from Ubisoft. They can't see that. They think that we release it unfinished, it's broken, it's half-assed, it plays and looks like crap. Stealth sections that don't work, that after release have to be rejigged to even be playable somewhat. And they do it later, and they're talking about, we're going to release it again on Switch 2, and it's going to be like a new game. No, it's going to be the game you should have released that was actually finished. Now it's out. People don't want to waste their time. Even people who bought it and wasted their money on release, most of those people aren't even going to bother playing it again and trying it again, even after you've supposedly fixed it. It's really annoying in the gaming industry when these companies do this, where they treat releasing it, they just treat every new release like an early access game. A lot of these bigger companies like this, and they sort of pat themselves on the back, like, we're still patching it, we're still fixing it and putting things in, we're putting in that work. No, it's not a live service game. Most of us just want to play it maybe once. Maybe we'll play it again in 5-10 years when we've forgotten some of it. We're not just going to keep going back to it because you've put a few bug fixes in it. That's not how most gamers work. They move on to the next thing, or they play what they want to play. They're not just spending all their time devoting it around your release and what works well for your schedules when you're putting in these updates because your game was half-baked and half-finished. Just stop. It's why your company is totally failing. At least when you guys sucked in like 2015, it was just because your games were repetitive and people were getting a bit sick of them. We were getting tired of it. Fatigue had kind of set in with your style of game. But at least for the most part, a few like Unity aside, they were still finished products for somewhat. They weren't exciting necessarily, but it was, okay, I've paid for the game. I know what to expect. This is sort of cookie cutter, popcorn flick sort of video game entertainment. That's it. I'm getting what I paid for at least. Now you're not even getting that. The games are just not finished. And again, new releases 5 years later, a revamped version, all that sort of crap. Now they've resorted to that now. So you're getting nothing from a Ubisoft release. That's why they're now totally failing. You're not even bringing the normies in because everyone's pointing and laughing at Ubisoft for years. That's filtered through to everyone. Now absolutely no one is interested. People have totally moved on. Ubisoft are a joke. No one cares anymore. Their only way back really is to release something very innovative that grabs people again. It's got to be like their Assassin's Creed 2 moment in 2026, whenever their next big release comes out, if they're not closed by then. It's got to be an Assassin's Creed 2. It's got to be a Far Cry 3 or something that brings everyone in. Reputation squandered. None of the IPs, none of those names are going to bring people in anymore because you've ruined all of them. So it's going to have to be quality. Based on this, zero self-awareness, PR nonsense that no one is ever going to buy, just looks pathetic, just looks stupid, and gives me zero hope whatsoever that they're going to learn their lesson and the next game's going to be any better. Assassin's Creed Shadows was a testament to that. Like, that had to be their big game. That had to bring them back, put them on the map. Didn't happen. It was yet another flop, just like Star Wars Outlaws. So, good luck, but I wouldn't bet money on them turning things around ever, really. I think it's basically over, but we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.